Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Since 2016, I've been answering your questions, giving advice and inspiration to countless gamers. Here, you can ask questions in the comments and get your own videos as an answer. So I encourage you, enjoy by all means. But come back to visit with your friend, the Dungeon Tutor. Hello, my friends. I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about the topic from RPGaDay 2025, number 5, which is ancient. Now, ancient, obviously, a time long past, and in many games, no matter how, nonsensical it seems, there's always the assumption that in the past there was something far greater than what we have today. Civilizations had different technologies than we have. You had, certainly in more fantasy-oriented areas, the idea that in the past, a civilization rose up for whatever reason, fell, so they're not around anymore, but they left behind all of their goodies. Probably the best example of that is the game Numenera. By Monty Cook Games. In Numenera, it's Earth 9 billion years into the future. Humanity left Earth a long time ago. Several other civilizations rose as sentience evolved again and again and again, and those races either exterminated themselves or left Earth again. So the humans, we're back to being human again, are inheritors of a world that has been utterly changed. But all that stuff in the past has had an impact on the way things are today. Even the very air is impregnated with nanomachines. Little microscopic tiny devices that do all the stuff. So if you are a nano, which is their version of a wizard, you can pull off seemingly magical effects, but it's all because the air is full of nanotechnology that somehow instinctively you can manipulate to cause these effects. It's interesting, and it certainly is a justification for anything that happens in the game. You have a strange force that goes bowling through the world, and it's full of, again, nanomachines called the Iron Wind that if they catch any kind of living creature, they transform it ruthlessly and randomly, sometimes into a form that can't live, that can't sustain itself, and it can be horrifying in its possibilities. Anybody who comes across it is going to be somehow changed. Even if you're a player character, the Iron Wind will somehow change you and possibly, very likely, kill you. So, ancient often means a lot of things in games. It's often potential for reclaiming what was lost, for advancing the potency or the significance of a thing or device. Rarely is ancient weaker, and I think that's important. There's a difference between ancient and old, and it's not just in its context. Old implies, a sort of shriveling, a sort of weakening because of age. A bridge that is old is seen as something maybe not to be trusted because it might need maintenance, it might need upkeep because it's been around for a long time, possibly seen a lot of traffic. It's old. But if a bridge is ancient, oftentimes that's a sign of respect. It's weathered the ages. It's probably stronger than anything we can make today. And that is an interesting level of significance that we put upon that word. Because ancient means older than old. But at the same time, it implies power, potency, and something that we have lost, quite frankly. That is one of those important elements. And it's not just fantasy, by the way. In science fiction, whenever something is ancient that's stumbled across, it's usually higher tech than what you have, or working in a different way than what you understand. Ancient does not mean worse, despite the fact that your current high level of technology in science fiction implies that you came from something worse as far as your culture and have evolved and evolved and invented and improved. But ancient, even in science fiction, is interesting because an ancient, say, spaceship that you might come across in your travels, if you examine it, odds are pretty good that it's got something comparable or superior to what you currently have, because that's how ancient works. It's interesting, kind of fascinating in its own way. Which is why if you're building a world, you're creating something, and you want to fall upon this trope that ancient is better than current, you almost have to develop parallel histories to show that something rose up, and in its time, either because of its method of operation, for example, a culture based entirely on psychic ability. If it fell and you are in the inherited world from the psychic empire, you could very easily say, when you come across something from that time period, it seems magical, it seems beyond comprehension, possibly performing better than things that you have now. Even though the time has passed, the eons have fallen, what have you, ancient still means something. It doesn't always necessarily have to do with a fallen empire. It could just be something that is in the past that is still valued. For example, an ancient meteor that hit the ground is usually going to be fairly exciting rather than just a skyrock hit the ground. Okay, if it's ancient, if it's in the past, who knows what it is? Maybe it carried some new creature and we're going to encounter something different. Maybe it's a last vestige of some sort of sky city that struck the earth and we can explore. A meteor hitting the ground is an event. Finding an ancient meteor that hit the ground is often something vastly more exciting, surprising, different. And that is certainly something that a good game master can cue upon and put in something that'll really excite his players. If you think that a monster, for example, needs freshening up, make it an ancient variety of that monster, even ancient kobolds. You might think, well, if they're ancient, they're decrepit. They're walking skeletons with flesh just kind of draped off of them. They're so old. But if they've gotten to that age, they must have something going on. Some ability to survive, and not just survive, in a harsh world, prosper in their turn. Maybe they are proto-liches, for instance. Undying, frozen at a time, absorbed of immense knowledge and wisdom for their passing, well, for kobolds. And that makes them much more terrifying, rather than just old kobolds. Nobody's scared of old kobolds, although you might want to, considering how easily kobolds die in most role-playing games. If they manage to survive to an old age, that is a compliment to their something, their god's favor, their wisdom, their intelligence, what have you. But ancient implies power, and all you need is that little bit of a modifier before something, and you instantly make it different. An ancient sword, for example, in something like Dungeons and Dragons or something, you might actually just imply that straight up it's magical. If it wasn't, then the ancient sword would have rusted away long ago, it would have somehow broken, decayed, what have you. But if it is a truly ancient sword, and a good example of that, if you've ever seen Conan the Barbarian, the original movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he gets the sword from the tomb, it has a breath of antiquity. But when he draws it, it's perfect. The blade is just as viable, just as potent as it was the day it was made. And that's not for nothing. It certainly was different than any other sword. And what he did with it in combat, was it because of the sword, or was it because of Arnold being an awesome warrior. Well, clearly, Conan is an awesome warrior. There's no denying that. But with a sword equal to his skill, he was nearly unconquerable. And that is by design. That sword with the copper grip for half-handing it, that all is an incredibly desired model and replica now, because we value the sword almost as much as we do the iconic image of Arnold Schwarzenegger wielding it. And that is something that you can add to your descriptions. That is something you can add to your game's legacy, so that the players can encounter it and realize their world is not just immediately what their characters see, what they hear, taste, and so on. It's got history, it's got layers. There are reasons why things exist. And if you tap into the unbridled potential of your world, your universe's history, these things can make your world that much more special. Now, of course, you probably want to come up with the reasons why these things survived from ancient times. And again, magic, alchemy, super science, some other form of technology, metallurgy, what have you, that people today just don't understand, don't appreciate, which makes it even more special and unique. These are all elements that add to that specialness of ancient items. Going back again to Numenera, finding the Numenera, that is these ancient devices, and figuring out how you can make them work for you. Not always what they were intended to be. Many of them are not what they were intended to be. For example, something that is designed as a laser cutter by civilizations 80,000 years prior, but still works a bit, still got some power yet, to a person in the ninth world might be a sword. It creates a beam of energy, and if I hit something, it dies. That's a Numenera. That is something from the past that is awesome and cool. And the world is full of these things. And this is how I choose to use it, even though the grip doesn't fit my hand. It was not made for a human. I have to use both hands because I have to push two different buttons, and they're spaced too far apart for one hand to push. But dang, if it isn't cool when I use it, right? That's that game. And ancient means everything to that game, because it is an awakening world, and they're just trying to grab onto the crumbs of the past. It's a fascinating concept. It is a cool idea for a world, if not a little, kind of silly, where people are just looking for ways they can squirt stuff into their bodies and swallow strange pills and things and hope it gives them superpowers, which we in our world know that's a good way to get yourself dead. But in Numenera it works because, again, it's a different feel, a different adventure, a spirit in that game. Kind of fun if you look at it. So, that's my thoughts on what ancient means to role-playing games. I hope you enjoyed it. I really do. And I hope that you like me enough to like my channel, subscribe, notify yourself that I make a new video, all the things. But I really do hope to see you again, and to see what your thoughts are on things like that. By all means, leave comments below. Tell me what you think. Tell me what ancient secrets your worlds might hold. Because when we share these thoughts, that's how the community grows. And we can all think that you are super cool with your own ideas. So, please do. And I look forward to seeing you that next time. I do hope that if in some happy time we should see each other again in a video, perhaps tomorrow even, because I've still got plenty more videos to make for RPGaDay. But I do hope between that time and now that you, yes, you get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun, but stay safe out there, friends. Until that next time, farewell.